Alright, everybody watching, hello. We are, as always, doing Battle Nimble Station. At the moment, so this isn't apparent to people at the time I'm recording this, but I'm sure it will be at the point this goes out, that basically when I take breaks from work during the day, I'm tending to record a video each time. Meaning that there's a limited length of time I can actually motivate myself to revise for in any single day, which means therefore they're kind of like been doing about two videos per day, and have been that's good. And have just been scheduling them days apart, so I'm actually making video stonks right now as the number just goes up. If by video stonks I mean absolutely no money, but just a large number of videos which are unedited and painful to watch. If you do mean that, then yeah, I'm succeeding. So, yeah, as always, we're just going through, hoping. I'm not necessarily certain if we should really be expecting Smash Them All today, especially because as I get better, the rate at which I smash enemies will actually decrease, because I'll be spending more time on higher rounds and less time on the earlier rounds like these ones, where it's very, very fast to smash a large number of enemies. But regardless, I mean, if it takes me longer, so be it. Like, it just means I get better with full health. Because like the more time I spend practicing on full health, the better I should be when it comes to returning to 5 health. And you never know, maybe at some point I will even get consistent with spiderlings. Probably not, but you know, I can hope. I'm gonna die if I'm not careful. I did. You can actually see I did manage to use the healing cherry. I must have used that literally the instant I got smashed there. And it must have been pretty much the exact second. Wow, I'm bad today, it would appear. I'm bad every day, but today I'm worse. Let's go. Hello there. Someone very, very confused stromling. Not be confused for too much longer, that's fine. And yeah, the ironic thing is that every time I say, oh, I think I'm getting better, and then mess up, that's more enemies counting towards Smash Them All. It really is a win-win situation. Either I get better fast enough that I don't need Smash Them All, or I don't get better that quickly and I get Smash Them All. And then I get that final health point and everything goes back to normal. Regardless, definitely looks like I should be managing that before I run out of healing kits. And I think once I get 5 health, it feels like I probably should be net positive on money versus healing kits if I had to guess. Because it just, yeah, I mean, it significantly reduces the number of healing kits I need to use if I have more health, or more total health. Because whilst I will still get hit the same number of times and everything, and so we'll still need to regenerate the same total amount of health, like, I can be more efficient for my use of them. I can do strats which take out enemies in, like, the ability to tank lets me take out enemies in fewer shots, and therefore being, well, yeah, and therefore being hit fewer times. So although on a hit-by-hit basis, they don't get me much, although they actually still do for a second reason. On a overall basis, I will be doing fewer hits, but additionally, they get me more simply because these restore 4 health each. Currently, I have to use one every 3 hits because I only have 4 health. If I'm down 4 health, I'm already dead. So my efficiency goes up as well. Yeah, I misjudged that. And misjudged that even more. But such is the life of these runs. I am kind of going faster in these early rounds, and I mean, this is something I've noticed, just very psychological in the way I play, which is that after I've like gotten some good runs, I get back to those runs again pretty quickly, or fairly reliably. Like, I tend to make it back to the same place quite frequently, and I think the reason that is because at the point where I'm still not getting very good runs in a session, I'm very much in the mood of, okay, let's go quickly to get to some good runs, to get to some high levels, whatever. And then later on in the session, I end up being like, oh, wait a second, that's... once I actually have reached one, it's like, okay, I can relax a little bit. I don't need to go as quickly. I know I will make it to this one, so let's stop trying to go so fast. Let's play it a little more cautiously. It's also worth noting that most of the plays I'm dying on now, I would not be dying on with 5 health. Some of them I would still be, because this is me. It's not like I'm a perfectly calculating genius whose actions are at all points in time completely optimal. That is, in fact, Brian. Speaking of whom, I've got to complete my daily mission for today. Well, I probably won't do that now. But I've got a daily mission to send a mail to both of Brian's main accounts, dropping off a single croissant to each one every day. I haven't. There's no time limit on when this stops. This will just happen every day, indefinitely. So, yeah. Enjoy your croissants, Brian. I also realised that there was a reference to one of the previous ones I put out, where I had 99 Luftballons in my head. It's that, yes, there was actually... It's that I... Getting saved by the Mac there. Is that, yes, I knew there was a 99 something Luftballon, and I was thinking, like, I was trying desperately to work out what the suffix was, because I could hit, well, I heard there was something, and I was like, wait a second, is that a word prefixing Luftballon that just isn't in the title, or is that part of the 99? The only thing I could remember was, like, was I think the suffix sein or something from German, because that's been literally years ago I studied that. And so I was like, well, that's not what they're saying. But then I remember that I think it's like zig is the suffix for times 10, and like sein is the suffix for plus 10, or just the word 10, I think. I don't know. It's been a long time. But regardless, yeah, I definitely messed up. And just said 909 Luftballon, which is not. I mean, I think it's sufficient that people would understand that which I was saying, but they would look at me weirdly because why are you saying? It's like someone saying 99 balloons. I don't know what Luftballon actually is. That's one of those instances, actually, that's a really good example, arguably, of what I was talking about yesterday, about I should train myself to single attack, to single hit only with this. Because there, I landed sooner than I intended, and could have moved away, but I got caught up in the attacking animation. So, yeah, rookie error on that one. It's fine, we're settling into the groove of things. Vibes are here. Everything's well. I could even... I had the music on in here for ages. I don't think I'd want the sound effects on, but you know what, let's adjust things and I'll turn it on for you guys as well. Hello. Okay, where's it? And I think I've... Wow. Oh, no, okay. That was there. I don't know how loud this is for you. Oh, no! I forgot recently all of this stuff got reset. Oh, that's annoying. Because I'd also found the settings somewhere, I do not remember where it is, that was play sounds on unfocus, which made my life so much better. Let's turn down basically everything else. Yeah, ambient sounds. Oh, hello, I'm being attacked. Ambient sounds can still stay on. Yeah, I wish I had a good sense of how loud this was for you guys right now. I can only sense... Oh, yeah, okay, I can see roughly where it is. So... Ba-da-dum. I mean, honestly, I deserve to not make it through this wave after some of the gameplay from today. Oh, some of the gameplay from this wave in particular. But anyway, yes. Yeah, so I've been spending the past several days revising for exams. I've got a review article which I've mentioned in the past, which I've reached the stage where I am like what 7,000 odd words in, which pretty good. It's a 3,000 word piece of writing. So yeah, I mean the 7,000 words are largely appendices, but yeah, it's no idea how much that's gonna work. Basically, my idea when writing it was, wait a second, I've done a lot of research to like back this up. Like, I've made certain that I can derive like about a good number of the results I quote in the paper. I can not only derive, but I can provide intuition for. And they're like it's a paper on like mathematical analyses and stuff like that. So it's fairly like, normally for a research review you wouldn't necessarily expect to be able to replicate the results. You just need to be able to report on them. So the fact that I can replicate them, I'm like, okay, I should put this in, like show off, hey, you know, I did enough research to actually be able to explain not only what the results are, but exactly how they were achieved. The only issue of that is that takes up a lot of words when you've gone through quite a few papers in that much detail. But yeah, I think there's something yeah, I I don't know. The aim at the moment is to have the appendices being like utterly optional, like because they are a lot of detail, and it is worth noting. Like normally I get annoyed at word count limits, but also I kind of have learnt what I'm like when reading papers over the past few years, where I've kind of started to analyse that a lot more carefully, and I decide very, very quickly whether or not I'm going to read a paper. Like, in theory, like the reason why a lot of people get annoyed at word counts is it's like, well, that's not how you're judged in real life. But actually, like, it really, really is. Like, if you can't excite someone about your work in a pretty short number of words and convey the majority of important points in a short number of words, they are not going to continue reading, which sucks. But like it's a fact which I guess I would have known in theory, but had never really considered in practice. And so one of the things, yeah, I've been trying to learn to do recently, like over the past year or so of my writing papers and stuff, is just is learning to like do something I'm really bad at, which is to completely cut out, or to try to like completely or largely cut out explanations, which does not come naturally to me. Like the way I write papers is as though I'm explaining my research to a friend. Like that's how I write, and oh, help. And like the whole teaching style is not exactly designed. The teaching style of writing isn't exactly designed for conciseness and concise reporting. I guess that's the best way of describing what it is I'm bad at. Absolutely terrible at reporting results. I want everyone to understand exactly why the results are what they are. One thing which I have gotten better at, though, which is quite nice, I don't have a plan right now, is I've realised a lot of the like long-windedness that comes about in my work is literally me just trying to explain a mental image I have perfectly in my head in words. It's like, wait a second. You know mental images, there's this lovely way you have of getting them across called images. And so I've made so many diagrams for this paper. It's more or less, I've ended up with like one diagram or one figure per paragraph. It's probably, I don't think it's quite that bad, but it's something stupid like that. Just because, you know what, diagrams are absolutely amazing. Oh, hello. How is all of that aggroed? Yeah, diagrams are just so good for conveying understanding. Like, I have read so many papers recently, and so many of them, like the difficult parts, when I actually read through and understood it myself, it's like, oh, wait a second. Why did you not just draw this picture? This picture makes it so clear. So yeah, piece of advice for anyone doing scientific writing is if you find yourself writing too many words, add a ton of pictures. I mean, in my case, clearly that hasn't like been a complete solution to writing a ton of words. But it's definitely, it cuts out many of them. Now, a large reason for the number of words I have is that I genuinely have just many, many topics I want to cover. But at least the rambling is kept to a minimum. I think that's one thing that's I don't know, yeah, that seems to be quite common with scientific papers, is the use of, or a common issue in writing scientific papers is the fact that the authors know exactly what they're talking about and have like particular connotations for words. And I mean, like, even I noticed myself doing this in the paper. There are things that like that I'm now incredibly familiar with, like the notion of an approximant, for instance, which actually I should draw a diagram for. Now I'm thinking about it, because I introduce it briefly and don't have a diagram for it, and everything should have a diagram. Alright, let's go. Let's go. Let's see if we can pull this off. Circling, so that doesn't hit us. Good. It's actually quite good if the web attack activates when you're running away. Because if you are running away by the points the web attack activates, or if, sorry, okay, very specific set of context there. I mean, if you run up, deal damage without being hit, and then the web attack activates as you're running away, that means you are completely safe. Because what the web attack activating means is that you're far enough away that it couldn't lunge at you. And that means that you've only got a tiny distance to go before you're like you've completely avoided that attack. Let's just go slowly away there. Yeah, I like triggering the web attack there because it gives me more time to recharge this cooldown. I didn't do it there. That was risky. In theory, that should be possible. Like, I think that is more or less equivalent to part of the normal strategy I do, but just because we're on like lower health, certain things which are part of the normal strategies I do are a lot riskier and a lot scarier to pull off. But here we are. That's finally it, and we have reached, for the first time on this account, Murgle Blotch. The Murgle Blotch fate should be literally no different from normal, other than the fact that I'm going to be a lot saltier if I lose it. There should be no change, really. Because he would have one-hit me before, he still one-hits me now. Well, the only change, I guess, is that new server, this server has movement AI. There are potentially things I can abuse about that. However, I don't think I'm going to. I don't think I need to. I think this strategy at the moment works fairly well. It's actually marginally harder for Murgle Blotch to hit me, if I recall correctly, because he won't slightly walk up towards me when I jump, which means, and if I recall correctly, I've got a larger range for hitting than he does. Well, actually, yeah, we can be. No, that was about to be incorrect. I was going to say we can be fairly certain of that for the fact I hit him and he does not hit me, but that's also in part effectively more or less due to reaction times. It's obviously not actually reaction time in the conventional sense, but just due to the amount of time it takes the animation to play the server to respond, and for me to die. That was the classic there. Well, it actually wasn't quite the classic. So it was, the issue was me landing. The reason it wasn't quite the classic was because, also still, where's that one extra imagination come from? I don't know. Yes, that was the classic, messing up because I landed mid-attack, or just before I hit Alt in my jump attack, the reason why that was particularly problematic, or why that wasn't quite the classic one in that case, was I think I actually landed on Murgle Blotch. I think that was what caused me to land there. Which is a funnier way to die. Oh, look at that. Look at how close we are to smash them all four. Doing really well. Should have that fairly soon. And it's nice that... So the really nice thing is, right, we've actually... I think over the past few times of me making it to Spiderlings, I have significantly improved at fighting Spiderlings, which is incredible, or fighting Spiderlings at full health. And the reason why that's incredible and so important is because of the elite Spiderlings, elite Dark Spiderlings that we will be facing off against later, when we do get 5 health, which will cause us significant problems. And fighting them will be very similar, as I've mentioned before, to fighting Dark Spiderlings at the moment. Wow, how did that... Oh, okay. Did more damage than I thought it did. It's fine. That was 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 stupid thing to do. Would probably do it again. Because that seems to be the main theme from all of these videos. It is me doing stupid things, me noting I'm doing stupid things, and me then repeating to do the same stupid things again. And as Einstein would be very, very disappointed to see, achieving different results fairly often. Because that definition of insanity only works when you don't have any random noise. The second you chuck in a bit of random noise, suddenly the difference between sanity and insanity, I guess, a la Einstein, is random noise. But never forget that it was Einstein who famously was convinced in the incorrectness of quantum mechanics, because God himself does not play dice, or whatever the German for that is, but as we've established, my German is somewhat suboptimal. Find it interesting how the mechs get sound effects when they get smashed, but the Stromlings don't. Ooh, let's not die here. Okay, that was unintended, but it worked. That was a fairly niche interaction. The only reason that played out the way it did there, with me getting that mech, was because I happened to land on the mech's projectile, go into the ground attacking state, rather than the air attack, which I actually intended to do. I possibly would have... I don't think I would have died had I not done it, but it would have just been a little bit longer. Whereas that was actually a very efficient way of taking it out. That was entirely down to chance, like most of what I appear to do when playing this game. Spiderling has not seen me. That guy has seen me. Do I go for... No, I'm just gonna get the mech. You see this? Oh, hello. There's another mech. Don't want you to de-aggro. I want both of you to keep going towards me. Okay, you I'm probably good with now. I know that guy's gonna attack me, but I can get away, and this guy is still fairly nearby. I might aggro the Spiderling doing this. I'll almost certainly aggro the Stromling. Yep, Stromling has been aggroed, Spiderling has not. Look at that for prescience. There we are. Okay. The annoying bit with the mechs out of the way. Let's get this one remaining one, clear up the remaining Stromlings, and then back to our now nearly scripted encounters. Remaining enemies. I say nearly scripted encounters, I mean they're definitely not nearly scripted for all the enemies we're dealing with, but remaining. Specifically the Dark Spiderlings, me fighting them at the moment is very much not a scripted encounter. Ouch, that hurt. Let's heal up. Okay, and let's go. Hello there. Yeah. Don't like that. And yes, I am now literally just using the word yuck as like a universal term of, oh no, something went wrong. Okay, that wasn't intended. None of this was intended. Help. There we are. See? Consistency is improving. And that's going to be key. Did not intend to land on the Spiderling. Not the Spiderling? Stromling's head. I do hate the names of the things in this game sometimes. Mechs and Spiderlings in particular, as I'm sure anyone who's watched this for any length of time will have noted, seriously mess me up. Because they don't seem like they should be different things. It's like, come on, look at that Spiderling. Does it look entirely organic to you? Hello, I see you there. So, did make a little bit of an ironic joke earlier at Einstein's expense to whether or not God plays dice, but then did spend like a ton of time last year looking into quantum mechanics, seeing how far I could get from exactly that perspective of God does not play dice, albeit in my case without the religious overtones. So, because it's a weird and very, very strange thing about physics. So you can do some quite simple maths in quantum mechanics and get a result which is known as the no-cloning theorem. And this is like a pretty, well, I don't remember, there were two theorems. There's one like it's basically the no-cloning theorem. There's one that's, I think there may be something that's kind of similar. It might be called something like the no-measurement theorem, something like that. I don't know. But basically, I mean, it definitely isn't called that. I know, but it could be. It could well be. In fairness, the no-cloning theorem could well be called that. I guess that's slightly misleading. But anyway, basically, one of the central results of quantum mechanics, and as applied to quantum cryptography in particular, is the fact that if I have a photon, I cannot copy that photon. Quantum mechanically, this is fundamentally impossible. It's not something I can do. I love how I translated the word. It basically just translates the word impossible for you as though you didn't know what impossible meant. I apologise for being as patronising as usual. But, oh wait, did that just... Yeah, okay, that did just get out of range and heal. Let's bring it back over to where it spawned. Actually happy with this. Heal. Oh yeah, it's better. Ooh, I didn't see you coming there. But yeah, and so this is a really well-known thing, and quantum cryptography basically relies on this, because quantum cryptography is based off of the idea that, wait a second, if someone attempts to if someone anywhere attempts to make a measurement of this, or does manage to like make a copy of a photon, or like in effect, yeah, if they attempt to take information out of the photon, if they attempt to get information from that photon, they must have taken it out of the photon, is the best way of phrasing this. And this is a fairly simple result from one of the major theorems of quantum mechanics, which is unitarity. Or unitary time evolution, which you can more or less, how do I want to say this? Yeah, I mean, one way of thinking about it is it somewhat encodes like notions of stuff working like time reversal, stuff like that. It's, I think, more or less one of the easiest ways of putting it. Like, you can see things as evolving forwards and backwards in time in the same way. But one of the nicer ways of just looking at the properties of time evolution under quantum mechanics is that it doesn't gain or lose information ever. And you can see this as being somewhat related to unitarity. And the fact that it doesn't gain or lose information means that if I have removed some information about the state, if I've gained somewhere some information about the state of a photon, I must therefore have if I've gained it and the total amount of information is conserved, and you can't destroy information in quantum mechanics, then that means that that photon must have lost that information, basically. It can no longer contain information about its own state. And the cloning theorem basically says, that you can't, I mean, it's in some sense equivalent to this, you can't just duplicate that information. I can't. So if I'm trying to listen to a message, person A is sending to person B, I can't just sit on the wire and copy, like, I can't, like, put a semi-silvered mirror, take half the photons out. So I can't, like, split the photons up, duplicate the photons, whatever, split their information up, and read the information while still letting the information propagate. If I am reading the if I'm reading that information, I'm fundamentally, necessarily interacting with the state of the photon. I may have said phonon previously, I meant photon. You presumably could do the same thing with phonons, but you'd have tons more issues with decoherence, so let's not. But there's an interesting problem with this, because, like, or it's not an interesting problem, but there's an interesting thing to note about this, which is the fact that we have fundamentally stated in the thing which makes quantum cryptography work, and like this as an algorithm, this is stable. You can, by performing this algorithm arbitrarily well, you can show that you can make it arbitrarily difficult for someone to eavesdrop on a particular line of communication. Despite, it's like, and this, or it's not even despite this, but actually because of this exact train of argument that you can't measure a photon without destroying the state of the photon, we have issues with definitely, like, some stuff which we're normally told in quantum mechanics. Like this is where, I don't know, some stuff gets, well, I'm sorry, that sounds like I'm being like, oh, this is all wrong. It isn't. It's still annoyingly an incredibly good approximation of the world. However, there is some weirdness to it. And there we are, finally Murgle Blotch. And the weirdness that's, like, is worth noting is in quantum mechanics, we, like, fairly often will talk about, like, measuring the position of something, or measuring something and then that thing continuing with the property we have just measured. But that's a little bit strange, right? Because if we've... this is specifically, I'm taking from the Copenhagen interpretation. Because if we've just measured the property of something, then we know that there's a huge risk that the thing has changed from that. In particular, by measuring the property something had, we have gained information about that property, and therefore the thing must have lost information about that property. And in fact, if you go through and do the maths, you can show that it gained... That's, like, it still has that property, so it must have gotten information as to what property to choose somewhere, somehow, and you can show that the place it's gained that information from is me doing the measurement or the measurement device. I have necessarily interacted with the system in order to achieve this and have changed its state, and this this is like really fundamental to measurement, and it's really weird because it means that if I make a measurement of a system, it is necessarily destructive to the state I'm measuring. Which is weird, breaks our intuition for measurements. Because and it then does bring into question, wait a second, if we are necessarily being destructive towards the state we're measuring. So let's take a nice example of this, which is that of measuring basically any property of a photon. We can say, and like the common statement of this is a bad idea. Don't like this. Can I be quick? No, I can't. Not quick enough anyway. And I attempt this. 3, there we are. Yeah, so what we... So basically, yeah, this is an annoying difficulty. The way we normally would like phrase measurement stuff in QM. Let's just decide where I want to go. Yeah, the way the Copenhagen interpretation tells. Well, no, let's just consider measuring a photon. Let's just consider the experimental details of how this works. If I want to measure the polarization of a photon, what can I do? Well, the standard way I would do it, and you can prove this is basically the only way you can do it, is I put it through a polarizing filter such that it reflects one polarization of light, transmits the other polarization of light, and I can then have a detector. I can take a look at that detector, and I can say, oh, all right. Or I can have 2 detectors, so it splits the 2 polarizations of light, and I have 2 detectors, and each one tells me which. If it goes through one, well, if it went through one, then I know it must have passed through that previous polarizing filter. If it passed through that previous polarizing filter, it had this particular polarization, therefore the light had this polarization. And I know that from the fact that it reached this particular polarizing filter. Ooh, hello. Let's not die. And so yeah, in that way we can use reaching a particular polarizing filter as evidence for what the polarization of the light was. However, we couldn't, we know it passed through the polarizing filter, but how do we know that? Well, it's because we made a measurement of it, and we saw normally what we're thinking of when we think measurements of light is we see maybe a photon multiplier tube, we chuck it in, and we see a little thing tick on. A little beep, a light bulb turn on, something like this. We use something like this to get a little bit of evidence that, hey, wait a second. Did I just do this for fun? It could be good fun. And I need to wait slightly. Wow, I'm bad. Bad at my own trick. And cool. Okay, so that's all of them cleared out, and now we just do the theoretically easier bit of getting these guys. Maybe close enough. It shouldn't be close enough to aggro the one across from there. We should be fine. Doesn't really matter what it is because it will take them long enough to get over here. I ran across there very cavalierly. Okay, so I've got to decide where I'm finishing up. Okay, let's finish up at the bottom. Normally a good place. Ow. Okay, and this is where I have to be careful because 2 are enough to smash me. So now we're back to being safe. More or less. There we are. forget how much damage they can actually do in one hit. I forget if it's 3 or 4. I don't like that latency. That latency is scary. But yeah, so the only way I was able to measure this was the fact that... Oh no. Oh no, this is bad. This is incredibly bad. This is like the worst case scenario. I mean, I'm probably dead. I'd be very surprised if I'm not. Okay, well, I mean, this is... Okay. Things seem to be back. Okay, don't know what was up there, but as long as we're back now, I'm happy with that. Yeah, so basically, so yeah, the point is, what we can measure is we can basically all we can do for photons is we can say, aha, we measured one. That's about it. We kind of... And we can correlate the measurement of a photon with measurement of a particular property it has, but that's more or less all we can do. So we can say, okay, if we measure this photon there, then necessarily this photon must have had this property. We can do that, that's something which is reasonable to do, that's something which makes sense. But it's, yeah, it's difficult and non-trivial to, it's difficult to really make any direct measurement of the property of a photon, without just effectively measuring the number, or measuring, not really, I mean, okay, I guess technically, without basically saying, what you're normally doing is you're saying, hey, there is a photon with this position at this time. That's normally what you're doing when you measure a photon. I guess there are arguably other ways of doing it, but this is they will all be equivalent to this one. This is, in some sense, describes the most information you can possibly get out of a photon, is saying, okay, this photon was here, I correlated being here with this thing, so that means this photon has this property. Okay, this is the round that I was really scared of. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, so what does all of this mean? Well, the thing is, photons aren't special. In like the properties of how the state of a photon behaves. Note that in order to measure any of its properties, we need to put a photon into a detector. And when we put a photon into a detector, well, things get weird. So just the most obvious thing we can say is that I put a photon into a detector, and what's happened? Well, by putting the photon into a detector, I've destroyed that photon, which is true. Oh no, I was just pathfinding weirdly. Okay. By putting that photon into that detector and by getting that signal out, I have necessarily that photon has been destroyed. The information has been transferred into the signal I am getting out from the detector. Which, alright. Fair enough. Why are you talking about this? Well, the interesting thing is that this is kind of an extreme example. When I measure an electron, I don't destroy the electron. However, so the reason we've got a little bit of an extreme example is because the photon effectively, the way I think of it intuitively is it almost has no existence apart from its properties. An electron still exists even if it has no speed. A photon doesn't. If you remove all... if you remove the energy from a photon, you no longer have a photon, and in fact, if you remove any energy from a photon, you no longer have a photon, because the photons are quantized in units of energy. So, or they are the quantum of energy contained in an electromagnetic field. So, if you've taken any energy out, you must necessarily have taken all of the energy out. Okay, we're just gonna aggro up this guy, de-aggro the spiderling, keep this pirate on us, run back and forth, corner ourselves for the vibes, and here we are. Okay, this one first then, I guess. The last fight I did was fairly localized, if I recall correctly. I'm just very, very scared about... The reason why this round scares me so much is that thus far, handling all of these things, I've used a lot of space each time. That's been my one go-to that's made any of this really possible. Yeah, scary. Oh, I did 1 damage there. And now I don't really have as much space on my hands as I would like. Just because we've got that other one down there, which is why I've kind of taken this fight all the way up here. Wow, I did nothing there. Oh, no, 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 don't do it, don't do it. Okay, I actually need to bring this down. Territory I'm less comfortable with, but I can't actually hit it up there, it would appear. Let's just go for that. There we are. Okay. That's probably the hardest one down. Because now we've got a lot more area to work. Let's play this slightly differently. Cool. I think I can go up here and de-aggro that. I hope so, if not I'm backing myself into a corner. It's not a corner I can't get out of, but it is a corner nonetheless. There we are. Okay, it's fine. It was a safe corner. But yes, yeah, so basically stuff gets a little bit weird when we start thinking about the detector. Because, so we've now established that measuring a photon necessarily destroys it, and we have the no cloning theorem. But, so we've got a detector, and this detector has just told me, okay, brilliant, you had a photon, which, that photon you had, that had this particular property. That was, that had this particular polarization. This isn't good. And what I can now go and do, and what I am perfectly free to go and do, is say, okay, I'm now going to get a torch, and I'm going to shine it in exactly the direction that previous photon was traveling, and I'm going to put a polarization filter over the top corresponding to the polarization I've just been told. Oh god, that was scary. As you can tell by that noise I just made. The noise, yeah, it is genuinely, I've just started using apparently noises of disgust as equivalent to, oh my god, I'm terrified. Which is strange, don't know why I'm doing that. Oh, that's annoying. Don't smash me now. I'm doing so well. Really? Okay, no, I'm still smashing you. Yeah. But yeah, so surely I've just violated. Surely the existence of a detector has just violated the no cloning theorem. So I've just used a detector, and okay, so I haven't quite cloned it just yet. The reason I haven't quite cloned it is because I could be... So for standard cryptographic setups, I will typically have light arranged in one of 4 ways. It will be horizontally polarized, vertically polarized. Just think of this as an arrow pointing with the light. Be horizontally polarized, vertically polarized, or it can be left and right diagonally polarized. You can have any number of other ways of polarizing the light, but you don't really get any benefit out of that, cryptographically speaking, so we won't really consider it here. The interesting part about all of this is that, let's say, is that I can only measure the horizontal/vertical polarization of something, and I can only distinguish between those two. If I'm doing a measurement, I will get the result horizontal or I will get the result vertical. And why is this? Well, it's because I've got a detector, I've got a polarizing filter which measures which will reflect things horizontally/vertically polarized. And the way polarization works is that the diagonal polarization is just a combination of the horizontal and vertical polarization. And so basically what happens is I get... Oh well, that was a good run. Basically what happens is I get 50%... I'm just gonna... because I'm not going to type for another one. Basically what happens is we get 50% signal at either one. That ends up corresponding to a 50% probability that a single photon goes through one or another. So in other words, at a single photon level, even if I had something that was diagonally polarized, when I put it through horizontal-vertical polarizing setup, I would only ever measure it as having a horizontal or vertical polarization. Now that's fine. If I know that I've produced photons with a horizontal/vertical polarization, I can clone those photons. But I cannot clone a general photon with this method. But this is interesting because we deal with the... Where are we here? Oh, we're close. Let's actually maybe just... I'm not going to go... This won't be a full run, but it won't hurt to start. Let's just pick up some more smashes. But yes, so the issue with all of this is that the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics specifically makes reference to measurements. And it specifically states that, okay, we can make a measurement of something and we collapse it into a state, or we collapse it into the state we measure. So this is exactly the description which I just laid out. That is, I basically, it's not really, haven't really collapsed the photon into that particular state. I've made a measurement of the photon. I've seen the photon. I've passed the photon through a filter with some probability. I've seen it being in a particular place, and I've then, for a single photon, I've then used that measurement to go, okay, brilliant. With that single photon measurement, I'm now going to go and I'm going to create a beam of photons which would also have given that same measurement. If it was horizontally or vertically polarized, this is perfectly correct. If it was diagonally polarized, well, then there's actually a 50% chance. Well, no, there's a 100% chance that I'll have done the wrong thing, because my result is always going to be either horizontal or vertical in its polarization. It will never be diagonally polarized, because I have no way of measuring diagonal polarization with a horizontal vertical polarizer. And for anyone wondering, you can't, at least linearly, so you can't with a single photon split things up any further than that. That's not possible. You can do it with multi-photon processes, but at the point where you're getting multi-photon processes, you're kind of assuming stuff about the two photons being from the same beam, and having the same properties, so it doesn't. And with 2 photons anyway, I could already make that measurement. Actually, no, I couldn't do it with just 2 photons. But yeah, anyway, the point is, we're looking at measuring a single photon anyway, and you can't measure both. You can't measure one thing out of 4 options with just horizontal polarization, basically. But even this is weird, because even this does seem to, in some sense, violate the no cloning theorem. We're not cloning 100% of the time, but we are definitely cloning. If we know that something is either horizontally or vertically polarized to begin with, we are definitely cloning with this thing. And on a much, much simpler level, let's just look at the conservation of information quickly. We've taken the information contained in this 1 photon. We should expect to be able to move that state over to another photon. Right? Well, we've just moved it over to an entire torch. I've just changed the polarization filter on this torch, and we are getting many, many, many photons out. And the way this is normally answered is through decoherence. But this isn't actually an answer. In particular, as has been noted regularly with decoherence, this doesn't actually provide a notion of this. This still requires some element of probability. Now, I personally posit that, you know, like, we don't need quantum mechanics for a notion of probability. We're already fairly happy using probability in thermodynamics a long time before quantum mechanics ever existed. Okay, maybe not happy with it, but we did use it. So I'd argue that you could, in theory, relate that, like, you don't actually need a separate theory of. You don't need to have a separate quantum mechanical probability, at least in theory, to thermodynamic probabilities, because we were rolling dice long before quantum mechanics. So yeah, basically, the weirdness and the thing I find really interesting is that there seems to be almost a fundamental paradox associated with. It's not truly a fundamental paradox, but we have some issue. Okay, the issue is unitarity and acting on knowledge. So, if we obey the rules of unitarity, if we act on some knowledge we obtain, we must necessarily forget that piece of information. And so there is actually some kind of vaguely funny stuff related to this, which, like, I guess is in some sense related. It's not a direct quantum mechanical analog, and it's certainly not a solution to this problem. But there is the really interesting and also really terrifying thing that when you retell a story, you begin to associate the words you used in the retelling with that story, and it's been shown. And this is why this is so scary. It's been shown that it's possible for someone to effectively have, like, memories of a particular event be more or less completely rewritten by just some cleverly directed questioning. And why is that so scary? Well, the legal system. Experiments have been done where people have basically changed, like, had details over the course of multiple retellings, had actually their memory somewhat changed through these events. There was an interesting discussion on something related to which mentioned this on Radio 4 several years back by Stephen Fry. And no, it wasn't him reading a fictional audiobook. But yeah, I mean, I think there is kind of some relationship here in the fact that, like, you are measuring something that is inherently likely to damage it, but that's not really fundamental in any sense. And the reason it's not really fundamental is because it's not happening at the quantum mechanical level. I can definitely read a piece of paper without losing the information stored on that piece of paper. And the reason why is all to do with, like, it's like that seems to violate conservation of information, and the reason most normally cited for why it doesn't is, well, this is a large thing. Why am I doing that? That was an interesting play. Is it's a large thing, so it is in some sense robust. It has already decohered. It is a classical object. All of these things are really interesting, and what precisely is meant by them is kind of equivalent to solving the measurement paradox. But yeah, I thought I'd just introduce this because actually the measurement paradox, or the measurement problem of quantum mechanics, not often called the measurement paradox, don't know why I did call it that, is kind of far more fundamental than quantum mechanics itself. It's kind of gone manifested in quantum mechanics because this is the easiest way of seeing it outside of human systems, but like there's a fundamental paradox associated with information is conserved and I can act based on information. Because if I'm acting based on information, I've transferred the information I was acting on outside of myself, effectively. And you could get around this by saying, but Ninja, you've got like multiple copies of that information inside yourself, and it's like, yeah, okay, fair enough. That is a good argument. However, I will counter that with the following, which is, let's say this information was a single photon event. How did I get the multiple copies inside myself? There was only one photon. So at some point, if I'm able to act, if I am myself able to act on the results of a single photon event multiple times in a row, something is weird, basically. If I am truly doing it, it would seem that I am breaking conservation of information, which is fundamental to the equations of quantum mechanics, and I'd like to be incredibly clear, these equations hold. These equations are incredibly good equations. They are good enough. I know, like, we don't have a quantum theory of gravity, and so people might be like, yes, physics is incomplete. There's the really important notion in physics of a limiting case, and in the limiting case of any energies and length scales we can access let's just go with, on this planet, quantum mechanics is correct. There are questions it cannot answer off of this planet. But basically, as long as we are on this planet, quantum mechanics is as correct as a theory as anyone could ever need. But it's interesting how we still don't know exactly what it means. And actually, when we start thinking about it carefully, this isn't just a problem with quantum mechanics, this is a problem with thermodynamics and our very sense of a measurement. Anyway, with that rambling done for today, I just realised I've accidentally been for quite a while now using glitches wherever this doesn't count down. I assume this only counts down when you actually go into BoNS, and doesn't seem to count down as long as you relog back into BoNS, which I'll take. Anyway, yeah, thank you very much for listening. I've been NinjaRoU. This has been, I'd say, fairly successful, and we are getting very, very, very close to Smashable. We'll get that early next time we play. Thank you all for listening, and I will see you around. Goodbye. Oh, sorry. No. I recently watched a talk, which was on how to give a good talk, and one of the important things mentioned in the talk is if you say thank you for listening, that's a really weak way to end a talk, right? Because that basically says, you know what, I've given you nothing of value, you shouldn't be happy to have come to this, the only reason you came to this, or you should have come to this, was politeness. There's been nothing of value to take away. So no, I'm not going to thank everyone for watching, but you still got to end on something, right? And so the suggestion which was used was, or the examples which were given were two people from two completely different ends of the American political spectrum, finishing their respective campaign talks with the words, "God bless you, God bless America." And it was very funny because in one of the clips he pointed out you can actually see the person pursing together their lips to try and prevent themselves saying thank you, it seemed, just because that is so automatic when you finish like giving a talk. So with that, from all the way from the United Kingdom, and completely context free, God bless you, God bless America.